When I moved into my new house, the sheer energy of settling in kept my mind busy. Between unpacking boxes and fighting the stubborn kitchen door that refused to close properly, life felt like it was starting fresh. Clara, the neighbor from across the street, was a pleasant surprise in my otherwise exhausting days. She showed up with warm cookies and a cheerful smile, offering me tips on how to manage the quirky little house. Her kindness felt genuine, almost too generous at times, but I was grateful for the company. Over the next few weeks, Clara became a regular presence in my life. She'd swing by unannounced to chat or offer help with small tasks around the house. One evening, she knocked on my door, claiming she had noticed my backyard gate left open. "I thought you'd want to know," she said with a friendly tone. I appreciated her concern, but something about the moment stuck with me. Why had she been in my backyard at all? I dismissed the thought as paranoia, reasoning that she must have noticed while walking by. It was only later that I began to notice subtle changes in my surroundings. At first, they were minor. A chair slightly moved from its usual spot, a pile of mail rearranged on the counter. Then things became more unsettling. A photo frame on my bedside table had been turned face down, and my favorite coffee mug vanished entirely, only to reappear days later in the cupboard I rarely used. I tried convincing myself it was all my imagination. Adjusting to a new house can be disorienting, right? But then there was the attic light. One night, I came home late from work and noticed a faint glow beneath the attic door. My pulse quickened. No one could be up there. I hadn't even gone into the attic since moving in. It was empty, except for the dust and cobwebs. I approached the door slowly, flashlight trembling in my hand. The glow disappeared as I climbed the narrow stairs, swallowed by the darkness. My breathing was loud and uneven as I pushed the attic door open. Nothing looked out of place. I swept the beam of light across the room, searching for anything unusual, but it only revealed the same emptiness I'd expected. By then, I was sure someone had been in the house. But who? The next day, I installed locks on my interior doors and took extra precautions. Clara hadn't mentioned the gate again, but I couldn't ignore the lingering suspicion that her overly friendly presence might have been masking something unnatural, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. The locks on my doors brought some peace of mind, but my unease didn't go away. There were moments when the house felt oppressive, like the walls were holding their breath, waiting for me to make a move. Clara had stopped visiting as frequently, but her presence lingered. She would occasionally wave at me from across the street, smiling warmly as though nothing had ever been amiss. I found myself watching her through the curtains, trying to decipher her friendliness. Was it genuine, or was it a calculated act meant to disarm me? One afternoon, I arrived home to find my gate wide open again. I swore I had locked it before leaving, but there it was, swinging slightly in the breeze. This time, I felt no frustration, only fear. I checked the cameras I had installed in the house, hoping to catch some sign of intrusion. Hours of footage went by with nothing unusual. Then, at precisely 2:37 p.m., I saw Clara. She entered through the side gate with a casual familiarity, as if she had done it countless times. In her hands was a small potted plant, which she placed on the porch step. She looked around briefly, her expression calm, before letting herself out again. The footage rattled me. What was she doing? Leaving gifts like a friend, or marking territory like someone who believed they had a claim? Determined to confront her, I waited until I saw her outside later that day. I crossed the street, holding the plant in my hands like evidence. "Clara," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "why did you come into my yard?" Her reaction was startling. She looked genuinely confused, as though I'd accused her of something absurd. "I just thought the place needed a little touch of green," she said, smiling innocently. "Is that not okay?" I stared at her, unsure of how to respond. She sounded so convincing, so harmless, and yet every instinct in my body screamed at me to stay on guard. I thanked her awkwardly and retreated to my house, but the encounter left me more unsettled than ever. It wasn't just her actions, it was the way she managed to make me feel irrational for questioning them. That night, I locked every door and window twice over. But as I lay in bed, the feeling of being watched crept over me again. This wasn't paranoia, it was a certainty. Clara's behavior wasn't random, it was deliberate, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was setting the stage for something far worse. Days passed, but the tension didn't ease. Every shadow felt sinister, every sound amplified by my paranoia. I avoided Clara as much as I could, retreating into the house where the walls seemed to hold secrets I couldn't unravel. The cameras helped me feel somewhat secure, but they also became a source of dread. I reviewed the footage obsessively, hoping and fearing to catch Clara in the act again. Then came the breaking point. One evening, I returned home to find my attic door ajar. My stomach dropped as dread wrapped around me like a vice. I had locked that door days ago. The air was heavy with silence as I stepped inside. I scanned the living room, the kitchen, the hallway. Nothing seemed out of place. But my instincts told me this was no accident. Summoning courage I didn't feel, I grabbed a flashlight and ascended the attic stairs. Every creak underfoot sounded deafening. Every step a fight against my mounting fear. When I pushed the door open, the scene froze me in place. Clara was there again, sitting cross-legged amidst old boxes and scattered papers. Her expression unnervingly calm. She didn't flinch as I shone the flashlight directly at her. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, her face devoid of any embarrassment or guilt. "I just wanted to know more about you," she said softly, as if her presence in my attic was the most normal thing in the world. "What are you doing here?" My voice cracked with both fear and anger. She smiled faintly, running her fingers over an old yearbook I hadn't seen since unpacking. "You have an interesting past," she mused, her tone eerily conversational. "It's like you've lived so many lives in this one house." My stomach churned. This wasn't curiosity. This was obsession. I demanded she leave immediately, but her demeanor remained unnervingly composed. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said as she stood, her movements slow, deliberate. "I just want to understand you." As Clara walked past me toward the stairs, she paused for a brief moment. "You lock everything now," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "But sometimes, people don't mind locked doors." With that, she descended the stairs and left through the back door, vanishing into the night. I called the police, but Clara was gone. They told me there was nothing they could do without proof of harm. The cameras, the footage, it wasn't enough. Weeks later, I noticed the backyard gate open again and an unease settled in my chest. Clara hadn't returned, but the thought of her watching, waiting, still haunted me.